guys, it's Amanda here, and I have with me my sister,
Hi.
Sarah. You have probably seen her before on actually the very first video that we did for Kindred Women. So we just wanted to kind of chat back and forth about comparison. So if you didn't know, we are identical twins, and obviously we have been compared to literally our entire lives. Okay.
It's true.
It is. I mean, yeah, I was baby B, she was baby A.
Yeah.
And so we came out of the womb already having these specific things. And so we've gone through even comparisons of ourselves.
Right.
And actually it was so funny today because she called me and she said, or I called her, whatever. And we make muffins sometimes. And
We make muffins.
Susie homemaker. And so we made muffins and they were a lemon poppy seed. And she was eating her muffin and she said, "Your muffins were so much
better than mine."
And I laughed and what did I say? Something about you're comparing.
Yeah. She was like comparison, and I'm like,
yeah,
they
was
were,
just really
but
funny.
legitimately, like, they tasted better.
Yeah. But it was just funny because we knew we were going to be talking about this today. So maybe, do you want to kind of talk about like why we compare?
Sure.
I guess
so,
so,
right?
Yeah.
So I think, what did we kind of say? Oh, yes. So I think kind of my biggest thing in my life, probably just growing up, and yours and probably many other people, is just the insecurities that we have.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we don't. You know, maybe somebody pointed something out to us when we were younger, and then that just becomes like something that you kind of keep going back to. That insecurity has almost been instilled in you, or you notice something that somebody else is doing better, or you think it's better,
Right.
and it's just an insecurity. I think is sometimes where a lot of our comparison game really starts.
Yeah, I agree.
And flows.
Yeah, I mean, and I remember, in high school and even in middle school, I don't remember feeling like I was like really bullied or even really wanting to compare myself with people. But I do know there were times like we have straight hair. I mean, this is straight hair. I curled mine with a curling iron. And I just remember, like, we wanted to scrunch our hair, like the other girls, and our hair would not
would not hold.
It
like
would not.
Curls. What did Mom do? I think our mom put
Like
like
mousse.
those. Well, mousse, but those sponge curlers.
Yes. But
Curls.
our hair, and so
At
I just
nighttime when
remember
you're sleeping.
Right, yeah. And I remember though comparing, like that just kind of being one of the small example of when I was younger. And I say for myself, things that I tend to compare are a lot of times end up being like clothing or material things. That just kind of is one of my things. Like I don't typically compare accomplishments and success.
Yeah.
So what's yours? Tell us.
I think clothing, certain things for sure. I mean, come on. But I think probably sometimes even as a mom, you know, it's not even, it's more of the comparison, like almost feeling like I'm not good enough is really what I think a lot of it is.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that in comparison that can fall like in alignment, like you feel insecure, then you're comparing, then you feel you're not good enough.
Right.
And I think that having kids, how I'm raising them, what I say to them, my husband, the way that I am with my friends, like all of that stuff, I think is probably my big comparison.
Yeah.
Like trying to compare.
So more of like a relational comparison.
Yeah.
And I think
Like, how am I doing?
Right. Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that. I
Right.
shouldn't have done that. I
Well,
should have
and-
done this.
Yes. But I think one of the other things that why we compare also is we're discontent.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I think,
yeah,
and that's
for sure.
something that we'll kind of touch on is if you're not content with who you are or who you even want to be,
growing
then
into.
then you're going to be discontent, and then you're going to look at everybody else as better than you, or that you're not enough. So I think that it's probably something that everybody struggles with at some point.
For sure.
And I think social media, that is like,
hate.
I mean, it is a love-hate, seriously, because we have a 24/7 access
to the internet. I mean, look, it don't matter. Like, Pinterest used to be what we referenced.
Yes, yeah.
But it's a little old school now.
Right,
but
Instagram and Facebook and even other stuff. But I know, like, even last night, I could not sleep. Full moon, all that stuff.
In the window.
Yes, and I got on my Instagram, and I've learned to not scroll and not compare. I mean, I'm not saying that it doesn't ever happen.
Right.
But I mean, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and it was there. Like, I could have easily been like, oh, her house is better, you know? Yeah. And then now I'm feeling crap about my house, you know? So
I just go to sleep.
Right. So we've already kind of talked about clothing. What other types of things do you feel like people tend to compare?
Well, I think
even specifically maybe on social media.
Yeah. How about like,
okay, let's just start with fashion bloggers, travel bloggers, and food bloggers. That is their job.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's their job.
Right.
Like, I sometimes will see and I'll be like, man, yes.
Man, I wish I could do it like that.
Right.
And I do think, like, there's one particular lady who, you know, I've always liked a really clean house or just organization, and ever since my third child, things have just kind of changed. And
look, did anybody see my Instagram story yesterday?
Somebody broke into
my
her house
because it was so messy.
Anyway. She was like, that's just life. My house, nobody broke in, nobody took anything. It's just we didn't put our stuff away.
Right.
But so, like, stuff like that, I think, just wanting, you know, another big thing is perfection. I think we will always, on some caliber, be striving for perfection. I think that's made in us. Like, Jesus is the only one that's perfect, and we are always searching after Jesus.
Yeah.
We're always searching, whether we really recognize that or know what we're longing for, that's what we're doing. So I think, you know, even silly things like, you know, okay, so I can't remember the handle of who she is. I should, but I don't right this moment. But she's got, like, Monday it's this, Tuesday you clean this, Wednesday, like, and it has been very, very helpful. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm just like, man, I didn't do what she said I was supposed to do. I'm okay.
Right.
It's fine. Yeah. And so, like, I kind of am getting to the point where silly things like that, I'm like, all right, whatever.
And you could easily compare.
Yeah. And be like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
So,
and even one thing that we've talked about is working moms versus stay-at-home moms.
Yeah.
You know, both of us right now stay home, and maybe eventually that will kind of be a little bit different at a different season. But right now we both stay home, and it is so rough out there for moms sometimes because, well, of course, because we don't work, we don't know all of those feelings. But I can almost guarantee you that the working mom is thinking how amazing it is that we get to spend all the time with our kids, and that we get to do all the Pinterest activities and the cute little food, and take them to all these wonderful places because we're staying home. Right. And here as us, like, I can probably say that you agree, we're thinking, what am I doing with my life? Like, all I'm doing is cleaning up food and wiping butts. Right. And we feel like we want to just be able to have a conversation with an adult, you know, outside of our home. And then we get to look cute. Like, half the time, sometimes we don't leave our pajamas or our yoga pants. But you guys get dressed and you got
actually
the cute
have your
shoes
hair done.
And so it is.
Well, and I think the cool thing about, like, one thing that I think helps with the comparison thing too is just being able to just guard yourself around other girls who, you know, you're strong enough to know that I'm surrounded by women who I love, girls that I trust, girls that are doing things different than me. They're working, they're not working, they have kids, they don't have kids, and we're loving life, and it's like so okay, it's chill. You just have fun, like, and then you can compare. I mean, not compare, but you can kind of like just this is what happened today. And then you're like,
right,
oh,
just
man,
share stories.
Yeah. And then being able to say, well, surely so-and-so has it together. And then you're able to just be honest and open and real. And I think that being more vulnerable is probably one of the best tools that we can do to get past some of the insecurities or some of the comparison is being, and not, we don't have to be over the top about like every single thing real and raw, but like I think it's good to be vulnerable and open up, and then other people feel like, man, me too, and then it brings unity and brings us together. So
that's good. And it is, I mean, because that's ultimately what, even with Kindred Women, like that's what the idea is, so that people can say, okay, I'm not the only one that's been going through that.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
And I don't need to compare and think that she has everything together, because she doesn't.
Right.
You know, nobody does.
Nobody does.
Oh, you know, Stephen Furtick has that quote, and it says, "We compare our behind the scenes with other people's highlight reels."
Oh, yeah.
And it is so true, because it's easy for us to see all of the beautiful things on social media, because I'm one of those people. I was talking to someone today. And I think you are too. We are optimists. We love to see the good in everything. And so it's easy for me to see the good and not want to pay attention to all of the bad stuff. And so I'm not going to then post all of the bad things, you know? But then to other people, if they're not seeing everything else, or they don't see me on a regular basis, they think, oh my goodness, her life is so perfect.
Yeah.
So,
and sometimes, I mean, it's, again, we just, I think, get so mixed up in thinking that what we see is all that there is, and that's just not.
It's not true.
It's not true.
And I think even some of the other stuff that people compare are like success and accomplishments, kind of how we talked a little bit. You know, did you get missed out for that promotion because someone else got it? Or even with pregnancies and marriage, you know, I think that a lot of women can say that a lot of their friends are getting married, and they're thinking, okay, God, where is my man? When is he going to be here? And just comparing the plans that they felt like God was going to bring to them, and he hasn't done that yet, you know.
Well, and I didn't really say anything to you about this, but I just thought about it.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just going to throw it at you.
You better tell me everything.
I know. Well, I didn't really think about it, but so it's crazy because if you haven't watched the first, what is it called? Interview that I had with Amanda, it was on my diagnosis with MS and just walking out faith. And sometimes it's been tricky for me comparing, like, you know, for us, like, we've battled comparison different times in our lives, different seasons that we go through.
I like that your husband does this. Or,
for sure. But so sometimes I know I have struggled with, you know, when it comes to my sister, like, we're twins, and then I'm the one that's diagnosed with this, as the world said, you know, incurable disease. And then I'm the one that has to, like, do the things with that, and she doesn't have to, and, you know, so there's things like that has been a struggle for me, like, for real.
Yeah.
And not so much more these days, you know, it's been almost 5 years, but there have been times before where it's like, yeah, poor old me, you know, and trying to put on even more of a strong sense of I don't want to compare, or without realizing I'm comparing, because it's like something less than, or something like I'm not good enough because I have this, or of course she's going to keep excelling in things, and you know, I'm just being honest. But then I have this little monkey on my back that's like, I had treatment today, you know, so I have to think about that stuff. And then, so there's things like that, again, it's just, it can be things that we don't have control over, that it's easy to even compare those things to the things that are looking really good for other people.
And the thing even with that is, you get to a point where you get wisdom, and you can step back from yourself, and I know this because I know that you've done this, you step back and you know she's not out to get me. She isn't doing anything, and even not just me, but anybody, you know, or man or whatever. Yeah. But they're not out to get you. Yeah. They're not trying to be better than you. Right. I mean, okay, maybe somebody is.
Right. Like, I don't know. Check your heart.
Yeah. Okay. But for real, like for the most part, people have good intentions, and so they're not trying to hurt you by doing whatever it is. Yeah. And honestly, I think sometimes, even just with being a twin, we have been compared to each other with a lot of different things. You know, we'll meet people and they'll say, "Well, who came out first?"
I know. Your hair's blonder.
And it's like, hello, we're not the same person. Yeah. Okay? Like, we are twins, but if she spends more time up in the sun, then her hair gonna be more blonde.
Right. Like, well, and also the crazy thing sometimes, too, is like, again, people don't do it to be, like, vindictive or unkind, but it is always interesting, too, because sometimes it ends up being pointing out things that we never really would have thought about, and we're like... I don't know that. And then now you're like, oh, maybe it is me that's the one that, you know, so.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, and even things growing up, it was, well, who had the first boyfriend? Or who got their period first?
Yeah.
I mean, things like that. And it's like, if it's constantly, and typically most of it ended up being Sarah, it was first. Like, you know, but... I didn't dwell on that where I could have. I mean, she did get married first. She had kids first. Yeah. What else?
I drove first.
She did. I was so scared.
I
was so scared to drive. But, you know, those types of things, even those small comparisons, they build and they build and they build. And then now we're like going back and forth all the time. And I mean, and there were things that I didn't really ever share with her, and I just dealt with them internally. And sometimes that's what you just need to do, you know? And I mean, actually, she came to me probably a couple of months ago and was like, you know, we need to talk about some stuff. And she told me some of the things that she was feeling like she was comparing. Yeah. But the good thing is, she said it and it cleared the air.
Right, yeah.
And then we haven't had to talk about it. Yeah. And she probably, for the most part, hasn't had all of those feelings again. You know, sometimes you need to acknowledge,
bring it to the light, and
that you're actually in a comparison game. And then you say, okay, what do we need to do? You know, and so I think with that, when you have a comparison game, you need to realize who your identity is in. Are you going after the identity in Christ, or are you going after what the people in the world are telling you to do? You know,
because it can't be the identity of your children, it can't be the identity of your sister, your family, your husband, even. And all of those things are going to help build your identity, definitely. But our identity in Christ is, it's kind of like a cliche, you know, type of thing. But it's like, there's truth behind that. You know, when you stand and hold true to what the Word of God says about, you know, being fearfully and wonderfully made, and even just, you know, I created you in your mother's womb. I knew you before you were born. Like, all of those things is true. And when you're struggling with insecurities or being not being good enough, it's easy to reference and go back to His Word, because that's the truth.
Yeah. And absolutely, I feel like if you're struggling with comparison, then you need to find verses. What is that struggle? Which piece are you struggling with?
Oh, there's a verse.
What is it?
Oh, I wish I could remember that. Proverbs something. And it's talk about envy rots the bones. And you're like, yeah. And you're like, oh man. I want to say Proverbs 14:30, but I don't know that that's right.
Okay.
But we'll cross-examine, cross-check that. But envy rots the bones. Like,
right. And even, you know, another way, I guess, to kind of end the comparison game is through going after His calling for your life. Because even just with Kindred Women, like, you're a part of it, but this isn't what God called you to.
Exactly.
And so you could easily be like, I have no purpose, and my life stinks, and what am I gonna do? You know, she's better than me. Yeah. And maybe you have had those thoughts.
Probably at some point.
But there are other pieces to that.
Absolutely.
You have to find your purpose and seek out after your purpose. There is a book that I have been reading by a cute little girl. She's not a girl. She's our age. She's 30. Her name is Tiffany Smiling, and this book is called Your Dream, God's Plan.
Smiling.
Yeah, isn't that awesome last name? I would love that.
Name.
And in this, it obviously it's talking about how we have dreams, but we really need to go after what God's plan is, and His plan doesn't always look like ours. Well, in it, she starts talking a little bit about comparison, and so she says, comparison assumes that we are due happiness, that we are entitled to the blessing of God's plan, even if we didn't seek Him in all the pursuits that have left us empty and alone. It assumes our path should look like the paths others have walked or are walking. And, it's basically, you're obsessing over someone else's path that God has given them when, no, you need to be worrying about the path that God has given you. Absolutely. You have the purpose, and you are enough. So you're going to go after God's calling, not someone else's, and also you have to be content, I think that is one of the most huge things. I think of times in my life where even my house, like I can look right now, there's lots of things that I would love to do more renovations with certain things, or I have a certain kind of style, and some of my stuff doesn't reflect that style. And I'm like, I just want to change everything. But
pour down the money.
Right. I mean, it's like, I don't have all this money to do that. And so I literally have had to pray, Lord, please help me to be content in my home.
Yeah.
And that it can be in anything. Lord, help me to be content without having a child.
Yeah.
Help me to be content while waiting for a spouse.
Yeah.
Help me to be content with waiting for my purpose and what I'm supposed to be doing. Help me to be content while I'm at my job and my children are at school, while other moms are at home with theirs. There's so many things that we have to be content, and asking God, because He will help you to be content.
Absolutely. Well, and I know, like, one thing that I have thought about too is that, whatever season you're in right now, you'll be in a new season soon.
Yeah.
And then after that season, you'll be in another season.
Yes.
So, I mean, it's easy to talk about children because we have kids. But so you've got a baby season, then you have the toddler season, then you have the kids are in school season, then you have the season of middle school, and then they're doing this, and then they're reading, and then they're in a season where they're in high school, and then before you know it, you're going to be in a season of an empty nest, and then before you know it, there's always potential, always will be potential for us to compare.
Yeah.
And I think as long as we're making sure we're looking forward and we're keeping our mind straight on what it should be on, we aren't going to fall into that comparison game all the time. But not to be surprised if it hits you one day that, man, I thought I was kind of through that. I don't think I could struggle with comparing. And then all of a sudden it's like, bam, you are now comparing again.
Yeah.
But those are going to be the seasons we walk through. And the cool part is each thing your goal is to just get stronger and stronger each time.
Yeah, and it's actually really cool because when we talked on the phone, when she, wanted to kind of talk with me a little bit about some of the thoughts that she had been feeling, one of the things that God showed me was, it's been kind of cool with us that, and this is probably true for you and some of your friends, is that we are not always both discontent in our lives.
Right.
And like she said, the seasons that we go through, if we were both discontent all the time and we were both comparing all the time, we would be miserable. But the thing is,
you'd be like, nobody wants to be right anyway.
And so the good thing is, I have had moments where I've been discontent.
Yeah.
And then she's able to help me.
Right.
And then the same with me. I've been able to help her get out of that. So I really feel like it's a blessing to have her. I mean, yes, all the time. But seriously,
Same.
Yes.
Same.
But seriously, there have been so many times where if we both were going through something, we would just be both wallowing and miserable. I mean, I remembered when we had babies, she was a little bit ahead of me with the baby stage because she had her son first. And so but there was no room for comparison.
Right.
Because it was, I don't know what to even expect because I've never had that. So there's nothing really to compare to.
Yeah.
And then now she's out of this season for a toddler, and now I'm into the baby season. And so now she was able to come alongside me and help me.
Yeah.
Whereas if we were both doing it at the same exact time, it may have been easier for us to just compare.
Yeah.
So being content, you will battle with discontent until you let Christ be all that you need. That's from Craig Rochelle, and it's actually his book that I have been reading. It's called Liking Jesus. This is really good, and this is...
Love him.
Yes, me too. And I've only recently just started reading it, but basically it's talking about intimacy and contentment in a self-centered world. Wow.
Yes.
Like, I mean, come on.
Yeah, all about me.
Right. We are. We live in a self-absorbed culture now where we literally have, at the drop of a hat, you see everything on social media or even the internet. And so being content with who you are, being content with your home and where you live and your car, you know, even praying. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Was being grateful and thankful for the things that you do have.
Right,
because that's another piece too. How do you get out of the comparison game? Is you have to be grateful for what you have. You know, and that sometimes looks like, okay, I'm going to look back at what God did do for me, what God did give me. And then now...
it doesn't always look... whatever it looks like now didn't look like that before.
Exactly.
Or, you know, and you can see each thing, like each stage of growth.
Right, yeah.
When you're trusting and stuff.
Exactly. And then I think just, you know, no one can make you content. That's where God really just has to do that. And you have to allow him. You have to have a relationship with him. That means, you know, doing a devotion or reading your Bible. Ah, goodness. And then, and I think the last thing that kind of we're going to share is just celebrating others.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I know there were times like when it can be really hard when you are seeing people, you know, and I don't think Amanda will really mind. Like when I was getting married, that's when she had a really hard struggle. And like I'm sorry, I was leaving you. We shared a bedroom, we shared a room and then a bedroom, and literally like I have shared a room or a womb my entire life. Like went from like we shared a room to now I got married and now I'm sharing a room with my husband. But like our parents had to sit us down at one point and just say, hey, like what is going on? And it, you know, but it's hard sometimes too, because on my side it was kind of like I don't know what her problem is. like you don't know always what's going on with the other person, and so it might be hard to read the other person. It doesn't always show up as comparison. Exactly. It might be distance or anger or just a lot of times I feel like it's distance, like just getting away. And sometimes though it means if somebody really, really, truly means a lot to you, it takes the extra step. Like you have to, it's okay. Like it's not fun to have those conversations. Right. Sorry, hi. But you know, our parents became our mediator. And if you need a mediator or a friend, just make it happen. And it's like, let's do it. Let's talk about it. And going back to like celebrating others. It's okay. It's okay. I think that even like, I know one thing that just usually comes to my mind, and not because I had issues with getting pregnant, but just being that person who can be celebrating friends who are getting pregnant. Right. And I know that you kind of, I mean, I know that you didn't try for like a really long time, but I do know. It wasn't a year, but it was like 10 months or something. And you were able to celebrate though with people who were having babies and getting pregnant. And you know, celebrate your friend who just got the job promotion. Celebrate your friend who just got married and you're wishing for that. Celebrate your friends. Because you know what? Eventually, and I'm not saying to do it in a disingenuine way. Right. You have to be real with it. For sure. But the more you celebrate them, the better you're going to feel. And the more content you're going to feel with what you do have. Because you're celebrating the fact that they still are being blessed. And something else that Craig Rochelle said
that this
he's awesome.
This is his quote. So he says, this isn't biblical. This is just something this is just a thought. So I want you guys to think about this too. It says, perhaps the reason that God is not blessing you with something you want is because you're not celebrating God's blessings in someone else's life.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like, how possibly true is that? You know, I mean, that is so good. If we really are blessing and really honoring and celebrating other people, God is going to see that.
Absolutely.
He's going to notice that we're doing that, you know? So,
well, and you know, another word for that is just being happy for somebody. Can't you just be happy for me?
Right, yeah.
But yeah, we need to be happy for each other.
And okay, last thing, I know we keep saying like last thing.
I know.
So another thing to kind of end the comparison game, stop scrolling up on the Instagram and the Facebook. Come on, she doesn't even have Facebook anymore.
No.
Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes it is so freeing not to have it. And
Yeah.
I used to definitely struggle with comparison on social media, and I've gotten away from it a lot more. And you know how I did that, honestly? I unfollow people. Or I never did follow the person. Like I might have wanted to.
Yeah.
But then if you start getting icky feelings,
if you're
when
not feeling good, then if it's making you feel you're not good enough, or you know, I mean, I'm sorry,
her clothes are better, whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not the other person. A lot of times, it really is
internal.
It's and there's nothing wrong with it. It's not like you're a bad person for, you know, just kind of cleaning things out, but it's just clean house.
Yeah,
you know?
and sometimes that might even mean that
or taking breaks.
Right, and that's what I was going to say. You get off of social media, you get your mind right, you start asking God to help you with the comparison game. You start asking Him to reveal to you what is the piece that's missing. Why am I not content? And then when you get content in Christ and you feel fulfilled with Christ, then jump back on social media. And then decide, do I need to unfollow these people? Or is it okay for me to follow them again? Right. Because I have kind of changed some of my thinking.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yay. I'm pretty sure that's it. That's it. That's all. That's all we got. So, yeah, I think that comparison, unfortunately, is something that is just so easy with our culture, with social media now.
There's just so much more access to, you know, when I think back to, like, I don't want to say the olden days, but there was not, you may have known all about Susie Homemaker down the street just because you're creeping out your blinds and looking at her. But the access we have nowadays is just different. So, and we definitely thought that it was something that needed to be talked about. And even just with us, like with some of our story. Like I mean, just because we're happy or you see I know we've already talked about it a little bit, but those perfect, cute little squares, like we have a great relationship, but we also get mad at each other sometimes. And sometimes we do have the comparison of this or that, and you know, the older we get, the more mature we get. You know, that's the reflection we want to have is I'm not going to let those things really get to me, or I want to conquer that and I want to be victorious. So I think we're going towards that.
Yes. Okay, well, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yay. All right, well, we will see you next time. Bye.